has to be made before I read a book or, go to work.
She was once America's golden girl, the blonde bombshell who lit up every TV screen from Dynasty to Melrose Place. Heather Locklear had it all: fame, beauty, love, and success. But behind the perfect smile and glamorous red carpet appearances, a quiet storm was brewing. Now, at 64, her story has become one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking tales. A story of addiction, heartbreak, and the heavy price of fame. How did one of the most beloved actresses of the 80s and 90s fall so far from grace? The rise of a television icon. Heather Locklear's story begins in Los Angeles. Born to a UCLA administrator and a production executive, two worlds that almost predicted her future. She attended UCLA herself, but instead of pursuing a traditional career, destiny pulled her toward Hollywood. Her rise was meteoric. Within just a few years, she landed roles in iconic shows like Dynasty, T.J. Hooker, and later Melrose Place. She became a household name, the ultimate symbol of charm and confidence. She wasn't just beautiful, she had presence. Producers loved her professionalism, her audience loved her energy, and critics praised her ability to balance vulnerability with power. She was everywhere: television covers, interviews, and award stages. But behind the glow of studio lights, Heather was beginning to feel something darker. An emptiness that fame couldn't fill. She once said that success in Hollywood feels amazing, but it never feels like enough. Was it the pressure of perfection that began to break her, or something deeper, waiting to surface? Love, marriage, and the illusion of happiness. In the 1980s, Heather wasn't just a TV superstar. She was part of one of Hollywood's most famous couples. Her marriage to rock legend Tommy Lee made headlines everywhere. To the public, it looked like a match made in heaven. The glamorous TV actress and the wild rock drummer from Mötley Crüe. But behind the headlines, the relationship was chaotic. Tommy's partying lifestyle and rock star antics clashed with Heather's need for stability. The marriage ended in divorce, leaving Heather devastated. Not long after, she found love again, this time with another rock icon, Richie Sambora from Bon Jovi. The world celebrated their union as a second chance at happiness. For a while, it worked. They welcomed their daughter, Ava, and seemed to find peace in family life. Yet, as years passed, cracks began to show. Fame, constant touring, and the emotional weight of Hollywood life created distance between them. By 2007, their marriage ended in divorce. Heather's personal life began to unravel publicly, a painful reminder that fame can amplify heartbreak in ways most people can't imagine. But the pain didn't stop there. After the cameras stopped rolling, Heather's world would take a turn no one saw coming. The battle behind closed doors. By the late 2000s, Heather Locklear's life had begun to spiral. What started as stress and exhaustion from decades in Hollywood evolved into something much darker: addiction and mental health struggles that would dominate her later years. Friends began to notice changes. Heather withdrew from the spotlight, appearing less frequently on TV and more often in tabloid headlines. The once radiant star, who'd graced countless magazine covers, seemed to fade before the world's eyes. Reports surfaced of depression, anxiety, and reliance on prescription medication. The constant public scrutiny, every heartbreak, every failure, made her pain impossible to hide. Hollywood is notorious for building people up just to tear them down, and Heather became a painful example of that truth. In 2008, her struggle reached a breaking point when she checked into a rehabilitation facility. It was meant to be a new beginning, a step toward recovery. And for a time, it seemed to work. She re-emerged, smiling again, appearing strong, but the demons she'd been fighting hadn't disappeared. In the following years, headlines told the story of relapse after relapse. Each time she tried to rebuild, another crisis would pull her back down. Friends described her as trapped between the person she used to be and the person she feared she was becoming. And yet, even through all the chaos, Heather never completely gave up. Deep down, she wanted peace. Not fame, not fortune, just peace. But Hollywood rarely lets its stars rest for long. Could she find redemption in a world that refused to forget her darkest moments? The endless cycle of fame and fallout. For Heather Locklear, privacy became impossible. Every stumble, every arrest, every hospital stay was splashed across front pages. The public that once adored her now seemed to watch her pain like entertainment. In 2010, a brief engagement to actor Jack Wagner offered hope, but when it ended, Heather fell back into despair. Years later, another series of incidents, including highly publicized arrests and treatment for mental health, painted a tragic picture of a woman at war with herself. It wasn't just the paparazzi feeding on her pain. It was the industry that once celebrated her. Roles stopped coming, invitations faded, and she became a ghost of her former self in Hollywood circles. The same studios that had built her career now looked the other way. Still, behind the chaos, there were glimpses of strength. Heather continued to fight for recovery, driven by love for her daughter, Ava. Those who knew her best said that being a mother was her anchor, the one thing that kept her from disappearing entirely into the darkness. But the hardest battles are the ones fought in silence. As the world watched, Heather's story became a haunting reflection of a bigger truth. Fame doesn't heal pain, it amplifies it. So the question remains, could she ever truly escape the shadow of her own success? The long road to recovery. By the late 2000s, Heather Locklear had reached what many called her rock bottom. The media had painted her as another fallen star, but what most people didn't see was the quiet determination that still burned beneath the surface. After years of denial, relapses, and heartbreak, Heather began to take recovery seriously. Those closest to her, including her daughter and longtime friends, urged her to step away from the chaos of Los Angeles and focus solely on healing. For the first time, Heather stopped chasing work, fame, or redemption in the public eye. She began focusing on the one thing she'd neglected for decades: herself. She spent months in treatment, working through addiction and mental health therapy. It wasn't easy. Some days, she barely had the strength to get out of bed. But there was something different this time. A quiet resolve that came from losing almost everything and realizing that survival meant starting over. Friends said she began to rediscover the parts of herself that had been buried under years of Hollywood pressure. Her sense of humor, her kindness, and her fierce love for her daughter. Ava became her greatest motivator. Heather often said that she didn't want to be remembered as a tragic story, but as a mother who fought her way back. And slowly, she did. By 2021, Heather had made small but meaningful steps toward rebuilding her life. She reconnected with her high school sweetheart, Chris Heiser, finding comfort in a familiar kind of love that existed long before fame ever did. But even as she tried to move forward, one question loomed. Could Hollywood ever forgive her? And more importantly, could she forgive herself? The woman behind the headlines. For decades, the tabloids defined Heather Locklear by her worst moments: the arrests, the breakdowns, the failed marriages. But the real Heather, those who know her say, is nothing like the sensationalized caricature painted by the press. Behind the stories is a woman who never stopped caring for others. She regularly donates to addiction support groups and mental health charities, often quietly and without recognition. She's also become a fierce advocate for breaking the stigma surrounding mental health, a cause that became deeply personal. Friends say she spends more time now surrounded by nature, gardening, reading, and focusing on peace rather than perfection. For the first time in years, Heather seems at ease with herself. She's learned that recovery isn't about erasing the past. It's about finding strength in survival. And yet, her story remains one of tragedy because it mirrors the darker side of Hollywood itself. How many stars have we watched rise to fame only to fall under the weight of their own success. Heather's story forces us to confront a painful truth. The system that creates stars also destroys them. Still, even in her darkest days, Heather never completely gave up on the possibility of light. But as her 60s began, that light flickered again. And what came next would leave fans worried all over again. Today, at 64, Heather Locklear's life is far removed from the flashing lights of red carpets and the chaos of Hollywood studios. She lives quietly in California, surrounded by close family, a few trusted friends, and the peace she fought so hard to find. There are still days when she struggles, with anxiety, with memories, and with the pressure of public perception. But for the first time, Heather has learned to live life on her own terms. The woman who once lived under the microscope of fame now finds joy in simplicity. Long walks, gardening, time with her daughter, and small moments of gratitude that fame could never provide. She no longer seeks validation from the industry that once defined her. Instead, she focuses on the people and the passions that remind her who she truly is. Not the glamorous icon, not the headline, but the human being beneath it all. Her story has inspired many who face their own struggles with addiction, heartbreak, or the relentless pressure to be perfect. Fans who grew up watching her now see her as something greater than a star, a survivor. Still, questions linger. Will she ever return to Hollywood? Could she ever face that world again without losing herself in it? Heather has remained mostly silent on that, offering only brief glimpses of her thoughts. In one rare interview, she said, "You learn that peace isn't something you find. It's something you choose every single day." And maybe that's the most powerful thing she's ever done. Heather Locklear's story is more than just another Hollywood tragedy. It's a mirror reflecting the high price of fame. For every red carpet smile, there are nights filled with silence, self-doubt, and the endless struggle to stay afloat in a world that feeds on perfection. At 64, Heather is no longer the blonde bombshell America once adored. She's something far more powerful. A woman who has faced her demons, lost everything, and somehow found the strength to keep standing. Her story forces us to ask, how many others in the entertainment world are suffering behind their smiles? How many more must break before the industry learns to protect its own? In the end, Heather's legacy isn't just about her roles on television. It's about resilience. It's about the fight to reclaim her humanity in a world that forgot she was human in the first place. And maybe that's the real story. Not the fall, but the rise after it. So what do you think? Has Hollywood learned anything from stories like Heather Locklear's? Or is the cycle destined to repeat itself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that reveal the untold truths behind fame, tragedy, and redemption. Because sometimes the brightest stars are the ones that burn, survive, and shine again.